seeing a lot of injuries because of how long the season is.
Yeah.
You've got guys like Steph that are running 4 or 5 miles a game, and you're doing that 60 to 65 times a season. That is a massive workload on your body. It's not something that we're naturally designed to do.
Making my point, but I know you don't get it. Got cash in my briefcase, I'm handling business. They made a few racks from the head to the dentist. I'm handling shit, I'm a menace, no dentist.
What's up? Welcome back to the At the Buzzer podcast. I'm your host, DC, and I'm here with the Collin Hatfield show. It's been a couple weeks, but we're back at it. We're excited to talk about the NBA playoffs that are starting this weekend. We're going to go through the bracket, give our predictions. But before we do that, let's talk about the 65-game rule. So for a little bit of background, the rule went into effect in 2023 as part of the new CBA, and it requires players to play 65 plus games with at least 20 minutes in 63 of those games to be eligible for awards, which in turn to be eligible for supermax contracts and everything like that. And I'll be honest, the rule kind of worked for what it was originally meant to be. It definitely, if not stopped, it slowed down the problem with load management.
Yeah.
Which, a lot of people were complaining about, but it kind of feels like now it's punishing people for actual injuries. So, we've seen it, especially this year. Giannis, LeBron, Steph, Ant, Luka, Cade, even Wemby had a little scare for a while about being ineligible for awards after such great seasons. So, what's the solution?
I think in all honesty, the solution is make the season shorter. It sucks, and obviously as NBA fans, we want as much basketball as we can get. But does there really need to be back-to-backs during the regular season? I don't think so. There's no playoff scenario, which is supposed to be the pinnacle of basketball. There's no playoff scenario where you get back-to-backs. So what's the point of that in the regular season? They can stretch the season out enough. You have enough teams, enough games. You got two more teams coming. I think they can create enough space in the schedule to maybe drop the season by 15 games, 15 to 17 games. That way we're still getting a solid amount of basketball throughout the regular season. You can eliminate back-to-backs. You can eliminate some of the wear and tear on bodies, and hopefully that can allow a more even playing field when it comes to talking about award season, All NBA, rookie, whatever award that is. It's going to be less difficult to get your best players to that line, because like you said, it now feels ever so slightly like a punishment, because if you're not making 65 games and you're not playing consistent minutes at the highest level, you're kind of being taxed for that. And I think we saw it last year with Tyrese. He had to kind of hurry up and get back near the end of the year just because he was going to be in potential of missing that mark. And looking back on that season now, it's like, dang, could you imagine a world where he doesn't get rewarded for the regular season he put on and then ultimately the postseason? And now it's starting to affect people's pockets. You can't get a supermax deal. So I'm right there with you. I think we got to shorten the season a little bit, and that should help everything out.
Yeah, I'm glad you kind of touched on it's hurting the pockets. There was a story on Fansided talking about with guys like that are not super big names like a Jalen Derran who are making the All NBA teams because of like bigger names are ineligible. That can kind of make the supermax come down a few percentages league wide. So we're seeing, consequences for every team in the NBA. And the 65 games, I don't know, it's fine, I guess, if the season were shorter, like you said. But also, I don't like the stipulation of at least 20 minutes because that causes D Book not to be able to be eligible for any awards because there were some games where they were managing his injury and he only played like 15 minutes. So I don't know. I think it might have been the right idea, but there needs to be some changes.
For sure.
And then you have guys like Luka who I think he only missed it by one game.
Yeah.
And that's why he's trying to appeal that short suspension he had for the technicals. So
Mm-hmm.
it's weird. And, Adam Silver said that he's not ready to say it's not working. So I don't know if I really see a change happening soon.
Well, I'll say this. As much as Luka receives negative attention for things like defense, effort, think about a world where a guy plays 64 games, averages 33, 8, and 9, and isn't on an all NBA team.
Exactly.
I don't like that. I don't like that. That's a career defining year for 97% of NBA players in history. That can't go unnoticed.
Yeah. And you brought up Tyrese Halliburton from last year having to try and rush back from a hamstring injury.
Mm-hmm.
We saw Wemby do the same thing early in the year, I think December, January,
Yeah.
where he was injured. He and the Spurs were, doing the MVP campaign. So he had to try and come back, to
Right.
get away from that. And I think even Cade Cunningham came back a little too early. In my opinion, I think a collapsed lung, you should sit out for a little longer than he did.
Yeah.
I understand coming back for the playoffs, but the regular season's over. You guys already got the number 1 seed.
Mm-hmm.
He shouldn't feel compelled to have to come back from a collapsed lung this early.
Right.
So on the season shortened tip, do you think that would actually solve the problem, or do you think it might just add some more goalposts, some more hoops, or
With any change, it is going to change the goalposts just a little bit, but I'm okay with that. There are so many games and there's so many nights where 14 teams are playing. There's 7 matchups top to bottom in the regular season. We don't need that much. You can't watch that much. Even if you're a hardcore fan and you do the first East Coast game at 7 and you do the latest West Coast game at 10 or 10:30 Eastern Standard Time, my bad. That's you can only catch 2 games. So I don't understand the need to have 7. And obviously there's different scheduling things that go into that. We've got award season, you got other sports competing in the same arenas. I get that. There's a lot going on scheduling wise that makes that more difficult. However, there's no need for nights where you've got 7 slate matchup and the next night you only got 1 game. I don't get that. You can definitely spread that out a bit. That'll eliminate back to backs, and most importantly, above anything, it'll eliminate as many injuries as we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of injuries because of how long the season is, paired with the game being the fastest and, dare I say, most physical it's ever been, most physically demanding. You've got guys like Steph that are running 4 or 5 miles a game, and you're doing that 60 to 65 times a season. That is a massive workload on your body. It's not something that we're naturally designed to do. So I think it really tackles all the problems for the most part. There will be some things that need to be adjusted. Obviously, you have to then restructure what the minute and the game count would be to make awards. But I feel like that's an easier conversation to have when the game total is, let's say we cut it down 15 in the, I'm not trying to be funny, but you got 67 games. If you got 67 games, we having a different conversation. So
yeah, I like how you talked about how physically draining that can be for an entire season. And then now you're in the playoffs where every time you play, we're bumping each other, we're getting real physical, we're not necessarily trying to hurt the other person, but we're trying to make them really, feel that contact and, not be comfortable. So to do that after already having played 70 to 80 games, that's hard. And it takes a toll on your body. We saw that with the Pacers last season, especially with the type of game that they play where they're up and down super fast. That's going to cause some injuries, especially on the lower body. And we saw it in the finals, obviously Game 7, still a sensitive topic for me. But we also saw it this season where most of the team ended up getting hurt because they played for so long. So I'm definitely with you on that shortening the season. But let's talk about the playoffs, man.
Mm.
Best time of the year.
Hey, I can't wait. Saturday, I'm not leaving my room, bro. I'm gonna be a chud for 12 hours. We not going nowhere, dog. It's straight basketball from 1 p.m. until midnight, and it's nothing better.
Yeah, we super lucked. I mean, we didn't do a recap of the March Madness tournament, but that was great basketball, and it prepared
Yeah.
us for the NBA postseason.
Mm-hmm.
And it already started strong. As we were recording this, the Hornets and the Heat played last night, and hell of a game. And I know you wanted to talk about that one. So, how did you feel watching that? That was just great basketball?
Tourney man, Adam Silver. If this is what you envisioned, you cooked. You cooked. This is what the play-in is supposed to be. The 9-10, super competitive from the jump. You can see Davion Mitchell's getting it up and down. LaMelo's aggressive. And I understand people are on him for the efficiency, but it was just him and Miles Bridges early on. So you got to empty the clip. I think a lot of y'all like pretty boy efficiency basketball. And don't get me wrong, KD's my favorite player. I love the stat line when he got 28 on 12 shots. Like, I think that's really cool. But sometimes you got to empty the clip and you got to go and get it. And so I really respected Melo for going all out. And then obviously Brandon Miller picked it up. And to the point that you were just making, I think we saw some of the fatigue with Con Knipple. Think about it, he played college all last year, went deep into the tournament. 2 months later, you got Summer League, and Summer League runs for basically the entirety of the month. And then you've got camp. You've got an 82 game season, which he played 80 games and right into the play-in tournament. He's tired. He's got to be.
Yeah.
He's got to be exhausted. And he hasn't had a full offseason to like prime his body for NBA level play. So obviously he had a rough night, but up and down, I just thought it was a good game. And I wanted to highlight Charles Lee, the head coach for the Charlotte Hornets. What he's done, nothing short of spectacular. We know Eric Spoelstra. We know his pedigree. He's outcoached some of the best and been one of the most innovative head coaches in basketball history. So for Charles to come in there, deconstruct the 2-3 zone that they had late, win a game that's not really the identity of Charlotte. Charlotte is a team that gets threes up and they get them up in volume, but the threes weren't falling. They still got 18 to go down, but it took them 56 attempts. So that's a formula for Charlotte to lose, but they still weathered the storm. He was able to scheme them good looks. They got a couple of lobs. They were screening the outside of the zone. It was a coaching masterclass. Even the last play that he drew up for Melo on the game-winning layup, to get two guys deep corner, keep Kobe White in the backcourt, you allow LaMelo Ball to play one-on-one in the center third of the court with Jaime Jaquez. That is coaching brilliant. So I just wanted to tip my cap to the guy. Phenomenal work from him and really the whole Charlotte Hornets organization.
Yeah, it's pretty. I'm gonna say weird, but I mean that in a good way. It's kind of weird to see the Hornets, performing this well, this soon. I'll say, because at the beginning of the season, and then especially last season, it was, what are they going to do? What even is their core? What is their what is their identity? And we've seen them play some really good ball this year, honestly, especially in the second half of the season, and you can see it in the crowd. That's what I really loved about it. They showed up. I can only imagine.
Charlotte was lit.
Yes. I can only imagine if they really get into the playoffs and then those home games where they got the light blue or the purple shirts on, that'll be fire. So it was nice to see that Charlotte crowd last night. And I mean the Blazers and the Suns game, that was a really good game as well. That came down to the last second.
Yeah.
But we don't know the matchups specifically yet as we're recording this, but let's just talk about the matchups we know and the top teams in the East. Starting with the East, obviously. Detroit, they locked the 1 seed down weeks ago. They got Cade Cunningham back earlier than a lot of people expected. Their role players are really stepping up, playing good ball. Jalen Derran has really stepped up and shown why he was an all-star. Tobias Harris is playing a good vet role.
Yeah.
Biggerstaff is coaching pretty well. They look really good. So my question is the East theirs to lose?
Mm-mm. As good as they are, and the incredible story and narrative that they build up this season, it's not theirs to lose. It still belongs to the Boston Celtics. In many ways, last year I think was more of an anomaly than anything. Missoula got a bit outcoached, and we saw him retool his philosophy a little bit, focus on the possession battle more. They had a rough shooting series against the New York Knicks. And so you compile those two factors together, and credit to the Knicks, Tom Thibodeau coached. I mean, that was a great body of work that he put together in the postseason last season. And Jalen Brunson was hooping. Cat had a great series. The adjustment of moving Mitchell Robinson into the starting lineup, great moves. Boston's still the better team. And I think a lot of people believe that the outcome is always indicative of who's better, but that's not what sports and that's not what basketball specifically is all about. Matchups makes fights a good percent of the time. If you would have asked anyone if Indy would have pushed OKC like that, you wouldn't have believed it. But they matched up very well. You know, there's a select few believers. Shout out to Derran. You did have them making the finals, so you definitely put that on tape. But
A little bias.
you know, there's definitely some importance on who the matchup is. And I still think Boston is the most well rounded team in the East. And if they get a chance to run it back with New York and Detroit, I'm going with Boston most times, you know, barring injury.
Yeah. So speaking of Boston, you talked about how they lost last year. So what do you think they have to do this year to win it? Especially with like, yeah, Tatum is back playing, but I still don't think he's, all the way to the JT that we've been seeing. He's had some great
Yeah.
games and he's been performing pretty well, but so what do you think they have to do to get back to that finals caliber, get back to winning that championship?
We all know they get up threes in volume. That's kind of their forte. They mismatch hunt. Tatum and Brown get the ball. They work the mismatch, and either they're looking to score or we're creating 3-point catch and shoot opportunities off that. But there's a geek side of the NBA community that they throw around the term the possession battle. And Missoula's really a geek as well. He's a nerd, and you can see that in his approach and philosophy. And I think that's going to be the change that stabilizes them compared to what they did last year. They were a good offensive rebounding team last year, but they're even better this year. The guards hit the glass, the bigs hit the glass. Neemias Queta is fantastic on the offensive glass. So what that will do is even if they have a night where they go 14 of 40 from 3, that's not the greatest percentage obviously, but if you're getting 5 or 6 of those back and we're turning those into layups or we're turning that into another kick out for a catch and shoot, that creates more easy efficient offense. And I think they'll be able to do that. And New York, they're not necessarily presenting a new dynamic. It's kind of the same Knicks team. It's still, you know, Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, but obviously you've got Mike Brown at the helm this time. But Boston has a different dynamic they're able to present. Peyton Pritchard is a bit better. Derek White is having an all-time great defensive season from a guard. So I think they have a couple of new dynamics they can present that other teams in the East aren't necessarily pushing forward as well.
Yeah. So let's talk about that Knicks series. They're locked in with the Hawks in the 3-6 series.
Yeah.
We've been talking about it all year, how we're still not fully buying in to New York. And this Hawks team might be the hottest team in the league. They went from playing 9-10 seed to a lock in the playoffs. Alexander Walker has been playing at an extremely high level. He's my pick for most improved player. Jalen Johnson, continuing his superstar trajectory.
Yeah.
And they've just been playing good basketball. So do we have the Hawks upsetting New York or not yet?
I'm going to say not yet. I don't believe they have the full structure in place to be able to do that. There's obviously some things we can look at, and it's like, that presents a real challenge for New York. The pace. The Hawks get up and down. That's going to cause cross matches. You're going to get switches. So there's going to be 3 or 4 times a night where a guy like Jalen Brunson has to pick up Jalen Johnson just to stop the ball or just to find a matchup and keep good numbers. There's going to be times where Nickeil Alexander-Walker gets Karl Anthony Towns on a switch. So their pace is going to be able to create some of these issues for New York. Obviously, there's times when Mitchell Robinson is off the court where it's free cheese at the rim. And they've got guys that can get to the paint. Nickeil can drive. CJ can drive. Kuminga, Jalen Johnson. They've got guys that can get to the cup. So there's a couple of things I'm looking at that have me concerned, but ultimately I'm still pessimistic because this is kind of a quick turnover project. A lot of people were actually high on the Hawks to start the year because we're retooling around Trae Young, but we retooled and then we went into the season and we kind of retooled during the season again, got Trae Young out of there. Now we're building around Jalen Johnson. Give it a year or two, we got a different conversation. But right now, they're still kind of working with some of those leftover parts and a team built more so around Trae Young than it is Jalen Johnson. And for that reason, I'll go the Knicks. I think it's still a competitive series, but I think New York gets it.
Yeah. And the other matchup that we have confirmed is the Cavs and the Raptors at the 4 and 5. I know Toronto is not one of the top teams in the East, but Cleveland is 3 and 7 against, the top 3 seeds, which for a team that is actively trying to contend, that's not good at all. And we know that the Raptors are capable of winning games. They need to be able to score, which is something that they very much struggle with, but they play insane defense. They fly around the court. They're all super long, pause. They play really good defense on ball and in the paint. So it'd be hard to see the Cavs putting up the scoring numbers that we might be used to seeing the Cavs score. So I don't know. I'm kind of torn with this series. Where are you at?
I want to say Cleveland because it makes sense. They've got more experience. Donovan Mitchell's a consistent playoff riser year over year. But like you said, Toronto plays defense and they're a gritty, they're a physical team. Ultimately, I do think Cleveland has the edge, but I think there's going to be a fair amount of low scoring games. They're going to beat the Cavs up. And we know James Harden's a very good guy, but he's turnover prone in the postseason. Evan Mobley is a very good guy, but we haven't seen him dominate in the postseason. And so now you got to do that against Scotty Barnes. You got to do that against Colin Murray Boyles. That's not easy. So there is definitely some hesitation because if they can't get those guys going and Toronto's absolutely shutting them off, but they're also creating turnovers, which means they can supplement their half-court offense a little bit with transition, getting layups, fouls, open threes. I could see a world where Toronto does pull off some kind of crazy upset, or they at least really push Cleveland to the brink. But I'm going to play it very safe here, and I am going to go with Cleveland. 5 or 6 games. I think that's what I'm looking at.
Let's go over to the West. OKC, man, there's so much you can say about that team.
Yeah.
They're super deep. They're the defending champs. They have the defending MVP, who very well could be back-to-back MVP. They have everybody back. They've, I think, won like 15 out of their last 16 games or something like that. They're playing insanely good basketball. They were, I think, one of 6 all-time wire-to-wire number 1 seeds.
Yeah.
And almost all of those teams won the ring. So I guess my same question that I have for Detroit is I have for OKC. Is the West theirs to lose, and are they beatable?
The West is theirs to lose, but they are beatable. Having San Antonio in your conference really throws a wrench into anyone's plans. Like you said, they're playing fantastic basketball. And what I think is really impressive and not talked about enough is they've only had one game this entire year where their entire rotation was available. J Dub spent time out. SGA had a little bit of timeout. Caruso's been hurt. Dort spent a little bit of timeout. AJ Mitchell spent an extended amount of timeout. So they've been injury riddled the entire season, but SGA has been such a stabilizer, and they've always had that defense to depend on. But when it comes to San Antonio, they're a young team. They can switch 1 through 4. They've got bodies to throw at Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Dylan Harper's a rookie, but he can defend. You've got Carter Bryant. Stephon Castle, we know how he gets down defensively. Like he puts in work. Even De'Aaron Fox, he's not a reputation lockdown defender, but he competes and he can give you decent contributions on that end. So as long as you've got Wemby on the back line and multiple bodies to throw at SGA, and on the other end, there's no doubt they can outshoot OKC. Champagnie, Vassell, De'Aaron Fox can knock some down. Wemby gets up a couple a night. Stephon Castle shooting 41% from three in his last 20 games. That's a problem. Because if he can get downhill the way that he does, and he's also putting up threes, Dylan Harper's very good in the pick and roll. So they're a very complete team, and they match up with OKC pretty well. But experience does matter, and it does come into play in a series like this where playoff physicality is something San Antonio hasn't really seen before. We don't know how Victor is going to respond to playoff basketball. Is Castle going to be able to knock down shots? Harper going to be able to knock down open shots? Carter Bryant, like a lot of their rotation has never seen this scenario before. And with a guy like Wemby, sometimes you'll get some very unorthodox and out of the way game plans. You see that with all superstars. We saw Nick Nurse pull out a triangle in 2 against Steph, a box in 1 against Steph. We saw what Udoka did against Kevin Durant, basically ignoring everyone else on the Brooklyn Nets, not named Kyrie Irving. So we see this type of stuff all the time. But with him, we don't know how he's going to respond to it. So there are some red flags when it comes to San Antonio, but I think they can definitely compete with OKC and, dare I say, beat them in a 7-game series.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. And don't get me wrong, I know none of it compares to the NBA playoffs, and especially, going down the road to like Western Conference Finals, NBA Finals. But there are players on the Spurs team that have championship level experience in either college. Stephon Castle won the national championship. De'Aaron Fox, they got to the Elite Eight. Wemby just played in the Olympics a couple years ago against, the Avengers
Harrison
of the United
Barnes.
States. Harrison Barnes, he was
NBA
one of those
champ.
Warriors teams. So
Luke Cornett, champion 2 years ago.
Exactly. So they might not have, the same exact experience. They don't have finals experience, but they can lean on some of that championship pedigree.
Yeah.
I like the Spurs team. I think they have a tougher road to the Western Conference Finals than OKC does.
For
because on the Spurs side of the bracket, there's Denver and Minnesota first round. And Jokic is doing Jokic things. I think he led the league in assists and rebounds this year and was up there in points. Jamal Murray's been playing better. Aaron Gordon's, being Aaron Gordon. Christian Brown's playing good basketball. Good coaching. I don't know. You think Denver could get back there? You think they deserve to be in talks with OKC and San Antonio? Or
I think they're just a tier beneath them. And they're a tier above teams like Minnesota, Houston, LA. They're a tier above them. They're more complete than those teams are, but they're not quite at the level of OKC and Denver. Both of those teams present some very mission critical challenges for Denver to have to deal with in a series that I'm not very sure that they could come out alive with.
Yeah. I feel that. I just think those 2 top teams they're 2 top teams for a reason. Let's be honest.
Exactly.
I think Denver would be the closest to them, but I don't think they're there like you said. So You don't think Minnesota has any chance at all to come out of this series on top?
Oh, no, Minnesota's got a chance. Definitely. Having Anthony Edwards gives you a chance in virtually any series you're in right now. I think he's that good of a player. And they have history. They've beat Denver before in a very
Mm-hmm.
similar Denver Nugget team. Now, I am concerned about their lack of point guard play. It's kind of point guard by committee. DeSumo handles, DiVincenzo handles, and then they'll have some minutes where Ant's trying to play point guard. That's a bit concerning to me, but when you have one of the best drivers in the league, a guy that can put pressure on the rim, and Nikola Jokic is the opposing center, that's a formula for a problem, and it was a problem last time they matched up. So I give them a lot of consideration. I don't quite think they'll do it. I would like to see them have a point guard and be more consistent from three, but I think they definitely have a chance. They could push it 6 or 7 games, and ultimately they could win if the cards fall right for them.
Yeah. I mean, they've had so many battles just in the last 3 years. They've played each
Yeah,
other, gotta be like 300 times.
real
But hey, I'm not gonna complain because every game is a banger, or
classic.
it's weird. Every game is either a classic that ends in the last possession or two, or one of the teams wins by 30. It's weird how that works, but I'm excited to watch that series. Definitely. Um, Other series we have Lakers and Rockets. I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm not all that interested in this one, but I honestly think the Rockets are gonna beat them in 5, maybe 6. But I think that's only because of the injuries. So I guess my question would be is, do you think LeBron and friends could, stay alive so that hopefully Luca and Austin Reeves can come back for like a game 6, game 7? Or do you think it'll be over by then?
I think it's possible. LeBron was on Mind the Game with Steve Nash, and he said, if we handle business in the first round, he just completely dismissed Houston. If we handle business in the first round, we see San Antonio in the second, OKC in the Western Conference Finals, and we make it to the finals. Now, first of all, I feel like that's kind of lofty considering they just got beat by almost 60 when they played OKC the
Yeah.
last time. However,
Yeah.
you need that belief in yourself, and LeBron is an all time great and proven himself so many times over. It's not even a discussion anymore. But we just flat out don't know when Luca and AR come back. If they come back game 3, game 4, there's a real shot because they are now a much more talented team and much better offensively than what Houston could match. But if we don't see those guys back, I think it's a 5 game series. And I think Houston wins just by punking LA. They're the bigger team, more physical. You got guys like Amin Thompson, Sengun, Akogi. They're going to hit the glass. They're going to pick you up full court. And defense and rebounding is typically the key to getting out of the first round. If you could do those things, then you worry about shot making, clutch offense. You worry about some of the more finer tuned details in the second round, but I don't know if LA can match what they're gonna do until Luca and AR possibly get back.
Yeah, it'd be hard. I don't get me wrong. When I say I'm not interested in this series, I'm definitely going to be locked in for every
Yeah,
game.
yeah,
I'm definitely ready for that game 4. Mike Breen bang after Reed
yeah.
Shepard hits a deep
Mm-hmm.
3 in like the late third quarter. So I'm very excited for this weekend and the rest of the spring and in the summer.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
there was a tweet talking about watching the NBA playoffs when your team isn't in it, and it was like such beautiful scenery. That's gonna
For
be me
real.
this year.
Yeah.
Because last year I was super stressed out watching the Pacers. Although we were, winning a lot, it was stressful. We would be down 20 in the fourth and then come back and win. So it'd be super stressful.
And every game is a clutch game for Indiana. That was the thing that killed me. I'm not necessarily a fan of any team. I'm a fan wherever KD goes, and I know people don't rock with that. But like, in my time as a Golden State, a Phoenix Sun, a Brooklyn Net, and now a Houston Rockets fan, those clutch games, bro, you borderline can't enjoy them because it's so stressful sitting through it. But watching that game last night, I love that. That was peak basketball because
Exactly.
I don't
Exactly.
necessarily care too much who wins, but I'm here for good basketball, and watching the postseason where your team or player isn't involved and it's competitive top to bottom, nothing like it.
Yeah. Nothing. Nothing at all. So I'm excited for that part. I don't have to be standing up staring at my TV, yelling at
Right.
it. I can just sit back on the couch, chill, and watch some good basketball. So I'm happy. WNBA starting up
Yes, sir.
this month, actually. There's
Yeah.
some preseason games. I think the season starts first week of May. We just
Mhm.
had the draft. And we just had the draft, and I know you wanted to talk about that. Azzy Fudd, UConn, she went to Dallas, number one pick. She's
Mhm.
reunited with Paige Beckers, her girlfriend, and former college teammate who won a national championship with her. So,
Yeah.
how are we feeling about that pick? Was that a good pick for Dallas?
That was interesting. That was interesting. I like AZ Fudd as a basketball player, and I think she's very talented. She's in many ways ready to contribute day one. She has that type of skill set. Very good shooter, knows how to move off the ball, competes defensively. But taking her at number one in a draft where our fam is available, Lauren Betts is available, and Olivia Miles is available, I don't know. That was a shocker to me. And then piling on, they can't be 22, 23. How many people end up, lifelong with their 22, 23-year-old partner? And what's going to happen if that does collapse? I don't think that's a smart decision. I feel like there's a lot of potential for issues there, and we don't really have precedent for it, but we've all seen someone that ended up hooking up or being with their coworker, and now when it all falls out, somebody ready to leave the job, bro, and that means a trade request in the WNBA. And I just don't think that was a wise move, in my opinion. We'll see. AZ Fudd is very good, and their on court fit together is great, but missing out on multiple what could be generational prospects in the WNBA to focus on something that's more relationship centered. I wasn't the biggest fan of that move, and I know some people may not care what men have to think, and that's I respect it. I respect it, but I just don't think that's the most logistical pick at number one.
Yeah, I get it, especially because you know they're under contract. So if they did have a
Yeah.
falling out, now it's a lot of problems for you as an organization, not just as a
Hmm.
coach trying to set up rotations and
Right.
play style. Now as an organization, you have to honestly choose between
Hmm.
your two number one picks.
Yeah.
I definitely understand the concern, but at the same time, I understand where they're coming from.
Hmm.
They won a national championship together. They only lost like 3 games together as teammates.
Right.
Uh, They're both extremely, extremely high level basketball players, and they obviously have the chemistry and they work together. So I understand the pick, but like you said, there's a lot of great players that they could have went with
Hmm.
instead of that.
Yeah.
You have to just naturally think that is the relationship the biggest determining factor for this draft pick. And I guess that's what a lot of people have been talking about. Uh, I'm a Fever fan, so I'm happy that we got Raven Johnson. It's going to be interesting to see if her and Caitlin still have that beef or whatever, but I
Yeah.
don't think so. I think that'll work out very well because not only for the games at practice, especially during this time where it's super grinded out practice, super like let's
Yeah.
determine these rotations, let's really get better practices. That's going to be iron sharpening iron because Raven Johnson is an elite defender. That's why we got her, honestly.
Hmm.
And Caitlin Clark is Caitlin Clark. So I'm excited for this season. I think that was a really good pick. Other WNBA news, we saw them expand to Golden State last year. This year, we just had the expansion draft for Portland and Toronto. So that's international growth and, another NBA city. And then they announced 3 more teams to come in consecutive years. I can't remember the exact order, but Cleveland, Detroit, and Philly.
Yeah.
So we've gotten more teams, a deeper talent pool, bigger contract. AJ Wilson today signed for $5 million.
Shout out. Yeah, that's dope.
Better TV deals. We already talked about the CBA. So the WNBA they're hitting their stride. Do we feel like they are getting to the point where they can start really competing with the major 4 leagues like NBA, NFL, NHL, MLB? Or is that still a few years?
I think it's still a few years away. And I'd say within the next decade, it's very possible. Because you look at next year's class is ridiculous. Juju is coming out, Hannah's coming out. I think Sarah Strong's eligible for the first time to come out. Tessa
I
Johnson
think
will
so.
be out. So you've got a lot
Michaela
of
Booker.
yes, you got a lot of high level talent that'll be able to come into the WNBA. And so it's going to be like this for a while where you've got just waves of big names with followings coming in, playing very good basketball. And I think the fans are going to buy in. I think some of the stigma is starting to come down and people are realizing like, oh, what you always should have realized, women can play basketball too, and they can do so at a very high level. And that stigma, as it's being torn down, the league just needs to continue to make good marketing decisions. I think, this wasn't the league, but getting Angel Reese to Atlanta, culturally, you can't do anything better than that. That is, the league is sitting on a gold mine. She's going to have the Dream Arena packed out nightly. So I think moves like that are going to be critical, and just continuing to positively promote the league within the next decade. I think they can compete with some of the biggest leagues in America and ultimately the world at some point.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch it just go up. I mean, as a Fever fan, I've seen it firsthand. A few years ago, the balcony level seating would be blocked off. You couldn't even sit there, and even behind the court used to be like a bunch of bounce houses and a play area for the kids. But
Yeah,
fast forward to this season, they're getting sold out every
exactly.
seat,
Yeah.
and that's league wide. That's not just
Mhm.
here. So it's been special to see that trajectory, and I'm excited to see how it goes in the next 10 years. But that's our episode for today. Playoffs start this weekend. We hope you're all tuned in and actually watching basketball. We'll be back with our reactions throughout the postseason. Tell us who you got for your finals pick right now today,
Mhm.
East and West. And also let us know how you feel about the 65 game rule. Is it good? Is it bad? Does it need fixing? Should they shorten the season? I don't know. But appreciate you guys tuning in.